On today's Retro Tech Repair, we're going to be trying to fix another Galaxy Invader 1000 that I bought spares or repair on eBay. So here we have our Galaxy Invader 1000. Now I have repaired one of these on the channel before, but it was a fairly easy fix. Just battery terminals, I think. So I thought it would be good to do something that was perhaps a little bit more challenging. So here we have another Galaxy Invader 1000. I did buy it spares on repair on eBay. It's a little bit worn and battered. I don't have the eBay listing, unfortunately. That's long since gone, but let's pop some batteries in it and see what it does. And let's switch it on. It's a bit stiff. Oh, it was on, that's why. Yeah, nothing at all, nothing on the display, no noise. We'll try different levels. No, still nothing on the display. Still no noise. So yeah, it looks like we're going to have to open it up and take a look what's going on inside. So the good news is the VFD display appears to be intact. We still have the vacuum port here and we still have the getter compound. So there is a chance that I'm going to be able to repair this. Now, since the problem on the other game was just battery contacts, let's make sure we're getting voltage to these battery contacts here. Now, I think since these are rechargeables, they are very slightly less than 1.5 volts, so I'm probably expecting high 5 volts. Let's see what we got. Well, nothing. Well, I never. Will you look at that battery terminal? Could it be that simple? It's broken? Maybe just bent out of the way. I don't know if you can see that. This battery terminal right here. Yeah. This is the kind of double-sided one that goes at the end. We'll tear it out and bend it down a little bit. There we are. It looks to be intact. Let's just bend that up. And we'll slide that back in. There's no connections on the rear, so I'll not kind of bend it over until we've tried and make sure it is making good battery contact. And we'll try our batteries again. So at this point, I'm really hoping it isn't the battery terminal again, because if it is, well, I really don't have much of a video. Is that going to be enough? No. Excellent. Good. So, fortunately, that doesn't seem to have been the problem, but we'll check now that we are getting 5 or approaching 6 volts here. And this time we are 5.17 volts. Maybe these batteries are a little flat, but I think that's going to be plenty to power the game, and as we can see, there's nothing at all there. Just to be sure though, we'll apply some power from our bench power supply, whap it up to about 6 volts and just confirm. So it looks like the yellow wire should be the positive. So we'll connect the positive from the bench power supply to the yellow wire and the negative to the white one. Take the batteries out first. So we have our power supply here. It's set to around 6 volts. Just double check that. There we go, 6.1 volts, and the negative goes to the white terminal and the positive to the yellow. And again, nothing on the display. We'll give it a minute. I have had these in the past that they've just taken kind of a while to boot up for some reason. Maybe they have a little timing circuit, but that doesn't seem to be the problem here. So while we have this connected up to the power supply, I'm going to check this connector here, because I've had situations in the past where, although power is going into the battery terminals, it's not getting through this connector, because ordinarily that connector would disconnect the batteries when you hooked up the power supply. So I want to make sure that, in fact, voltage or current, I suppose, is getting its way to the board. So we'll go on the negative here. The yellow wire is obviously where it goes in. And we have our 6 volts there. And then coming out to the board, we have 6 volts on the red wire. The black one probably has nothing on, because the black one would ordinarily be carrying the power directly to the board from this connector if we had a power supply hooked up, but we don't. So we have 6 volts going into the board. So the problem does lie in this printed circuit assembly somewhere, either on the board itself or on one of the components on it. This connector will just pull out. I think I'm going to disconnect the piezo sounder. I just find it easier to work with these things. These wires are fairly short. So we're going to remove the plastics from the electronics. I'm just going to unsolder the connections from these 2 power connectors and also from the piezo sounder here. I think I'll disconnect those at the board end, because that typically I find easier than trying to solder onto these piezo sounders. Okay, we should be able to lift this away now. Fantastic. Get the plastics safely out of the way. We'll get some power hooked up to the board. Okay, so I've got power hooked up now to where the battery would ordinarily connect. I'm just going to check that power is making its way to the board. And I think it would be this way round. Yep, so we have 6 volts going in where the switch would be. The other side of the switch currently has nothing. When we switch the main power switch there, we have 6 volts still coming in, but then that now goes to the next kind of solder joint along. So this switch is working correctly. And I could confirm that just by kind of buzzing across that switch. But actually we've confirmed now we have power going on the printed circuit assembly. So either there's a problem with the printed circuit assembly or some of the components on it. So I think now quick visual inspection of the board is what we want to do. We're looking for burnt components, bad solder joints, or open or broken tracks. So in the past I've used a jeweler's loop for this, and probably will do from time to time again. It works really well, it's cheap, it's easy, and it's portable. But it's not great for YouTube videos because my head would be between the camera and the printed circuit assembly, and I've just got a new microscope, so we'll use that instead. So now I'm able to do a very quick inspection of the board. It's not going to sit deadly flat for me, so occasionally I'm going to need to refocus, but I can carefully inspect each of the solder joints and each of the tracks. I can see very sharply now if I have any problems anywhere. But in this case, the visual inspection didn't show anything, so instead we're going to start testing some parts on here. And we're probably going to start with these 2 transistors right here. And we're going to test the transistors using a diode test on my multimeter. Now, I'm no expert in this, but as I understand it, I think a diode is a PN junction and a transistor is a NPN or PNP junction, at least a bipolar transistor is. So by putting our positive probe on the P in the NPN or PNP and our negative probe on the N in the NPN or PNP, we can look for a diode-like voltage drop across the junctions within the transistor. And that diode-like voltage drop should be about 0.7 of a volt. Now our first transistor, this one here, is a C2001. A quick Google search suggests the C2001 is an NPN transistor and that the base is the left-hand pin as I'm looking at it here. So with my meter on diode test, because this is a NPN transistor, that's going to be positive on the base, and so therefore I'm going to put the positive on what I think is the base, and I should see diode function between the other 2 pins. If I see a short, then I have a problem, but I should see about 0.6 of a volt voltage drop. So let's see if I can do that from the top of the board here. Yep, I see 0.6 of a volt there. And to the other pin, oh, I don't see 0.6 of a volt there, do I? No. I can't get diode function on all 3 pins of this, so I'm thinking that this is suspect and we should pop it out and pop it into our component tester, at least test it out of the board. While we're waiting for my desoldering station to warm up, I'm going to check the next transistor along, which is the C185. I got the number wrong here, it's a C1815. According to the internet, that also is an NPN transistor, and the base is on pin 3, so let's try that. So we'll put the positive on pin 3, and hopefully we'll see diode function across the other 2 pins with about 0.6 of a volt drop. 0.7 and 0.7. So that one looks good. We'll just do it the other way around to make sure it doesn't work. Nothing. 2. So yeah, that one looks to be good. This is the one that's suspect. While I have my diode tester out, I'm going to go and test the other diodes too. 2.6 volts that way. 0.7 that way, 2.6 that way. So that could be a Zener, or it could have something else in circuit with it. Nothing that way. 0.6 that way, so that one seems to be good. 0.2 that way. 0.6 that way. Again, these could be Zener diodes. 2.6 that way. 0.7 that way. And this one up here. 0.6 that way, nothing the other way. So my guess is that these are good. These are probably Zener diodes. Watching this video back, I'm not convinced these are Zener diodes. I could just be measuring a voltage drop across other components or multiple PN junctions elsewhere in the circuit. I should probably take these parts out of the board to test them, but if you have other ideas about why I could be seeing 2.5 volts voltage drop when I measure in reverse bias, please leave a comment in the comments section. For now though, I'm sticking to my theory that the transistor is at fault. Now my desoldering station's warmed up, we can take it out. Turn that off, it is a bit noisy, sorry about that. Here is our component. We'll pop that now into our component tester. We'll see what it thinks it is. It thinks it's 2 diodes, which, well, I did say there were 2 diodes, but that's really not the performance that I would have expected. I would have expected it to be able to identify this as an NPN transistor. We'll give it one more go. Yeah, still identifying it as being 2 diodes. A little bit strange, so let's see if I have something equivalent to this that I can pop in and try. So I don't have a C2001, but I do have a BC337, which was listed on the internet as being an equivalent. However, the pinout is different on those, so I'm probably going to have to do some kind of moving around of the legs before I put it in the board. But we'll take one of those and we'll pop it into the component tester and we'll see if it recognizes it as a transistor. Yep, and we can see it is immediately recognized as a transistor, so more promising than the 2 diodes that the other part was recognized as. These, by the way, are fairly cheap and available on Amazon, eBay and other online marketplaces. Okay, so I've taken our equivalent transistor and I've clumsily bent the legs around to get it in what I hope is the correct kind of pinout orientation, the same pinout orientation as the other one. And we'll go ahead now, test it in the component tester briefly to make sure it is still functioning as an NPN transistor, which it is. And with a quick side by side, you can see the legs are now reversed, with the base appearing on pin 2 instead of pin 3, and the collector on pin 3 instead of pin 2. And we'll go ahead and solder it in the board. Well, that seems to have done the trick. But I often get comments that I should recap those things that I have repaired. Now, I'm not denying that electrolytic capacitor failure can be a real problem, but my experience with these VFD games is that they seldom need to be recapped. So let's replace all of the electrolytic capacitors and see if it makes any difference. So here's the first one that I'm going to switch out. It was a 10 volt 47 microfarad, and it was right here next to that troublesome transistor, so we'll pop a replacement in of the same kind of specification, see if it makes any difference. Let's try this big fella here. He is, or she is, 10 microfarads at 35 volts. And this one is 16 volts, 22 microfarad. All right, well, I've got one more electrolytic to go, and that is 50 volts. And got 2.2 microfarad. I'm sure this one is going to make no difference either, but we will try it. So I don't think the caps made any difference to the performance of the game. Maybe they improved its longevity. But with the recap fans satisfied, let's put everything back together and give it a final test. So our Galaxy Invader 1000 seems to be working perfectly, and as ever, it's a reasonably enjoyable game. If you've enjoyed the video today, or even if you haven't, please do leave feedback. I read all of the comments and respond to as many as I can. But that just about wraps it up for our Galaxy Invader 1000 for today. I hope that you've enjoyed the video, and that if you have, you'll consider hitting like and subscribe. But until next time, I'd just like to thank you so much for watching Retro Tech Repair. Oops. And off we come with the lid.